So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at the alternative future of the world. That's right, after 2 months of me just postponing it and saying I'm going to do it again, we're finally doing it for day 1 of daily upload week. And that's right, it is also daily upload week, so you're seeing this on Sunday, video Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all throughout the rest of this week up until Saturday. You guys will be getting daily upload content. And this is in celebration of 90,000 subscribers, but it's also to push us to 100,000 subscribers within January. That's not an official goal, but if we do get there, it'll set us up good for the end of the year goal. Anyway, alternative future series is back. There's going to be this one today. There's going to be another one later down in the week, so you guys have a lot of alternative future to look forward to. And if you do enjoy this alternative future video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Once again, aiming for 100,000 subscribers. We only have around 8,750 to go, and yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the alternative future. All right, in the previous video, a lot of things happened, most notably though the unification of Western Europe over here into the European Union. Overall, there was a lot of unification, such as the unification of Grand Colombia. There was also Siam. War-wise, we had Russia invading Central Asia and Mongolia, as well as China, which was interesting. But yeah, a lot of major tension changing things happened in the last video, and we're going to be picking up right where we left off. So coming down to Myanmar here. Now, Myanmar has been through a lot in this series. I think they were part of the early red team, which was like the World War III team. If you've seen my videos before, you already know what the World War III team looks like, and if you haven't, shame on you, go watch my videos.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
What? But then they got occupied, they lost land, and were forced into the WDO, which is basically the NATO of this world, except it's like the entire world. They've been in there since. However, they did recently hold a referendum to join in on Siam, which is a recently united country, who is also a member of the Neutral Alliance, and the votes are in, and Myanmar is also in. Now, what did the vote count look like? Well, it's actually surprisingly a little bit more than you would think. 68% of people voting to join in with Siam, and of course the remaining 32% wanted to stay with the WDO, and of course Myanmar's sovereignty. But majority rules here, and Myanmar is a part of Siam now. Siam itself is just a neutral country. These three are united together, but I just haven't updated the World Alliance map. Now, speaking of unifications and referendums and stuff like that, let's go over to Europe. Specifically Denmark, who in the last video also started a referendum to see if they wanted to join in on the Scandinavian Union. I called it the Nordic Union, but as of now it's more Scandinavian than Nordic, so it's going to be staying Scandinavian Union until maybe possibly Finland joins. Not a foreshadowing, just a possibility. So Denmark did vote to join. Their vote was a lot more one-sided, 74% compared to 26%. And yeah, that's not the right union. But Denmark is now a part of the Scandinavian Union. Now we go over to Russia, who is continuing to want to expand despite being probably the largest country in the world at this point. The United States might beat them out by a couple thousand maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying that because they did lose all of this land over here. But now they're going to do something a little it's a little bit weird. They're going to force their allies to join in their union. So Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan will join the Russian Federation, or at this point, I guess it's the Russian Empire. It is an axis, which means it's not good, because every time we hear of an axis in history, it's usually not good. But yeah, Russia will annex their old neighbors and allies and form a, basically just like a semi-Soviet Union. But with this, Russia and allies are in check. They have nowhere to expand. In the peace treaty last video, they agreed not to invade either China or India. That takes away those options. They're not going to invade Japan. They're part of the WDO. They're not going to invade their ally Iran. They could invade Georgia, although they are still in the process of joining the WDO and are basically in at this point. So where is there to go for Russia? Well, the answer is nowhere. They literally cannot expand anywhere. Therefore, they're going to be expanding elsewhere in their alliance, and it's not going to be the Russians themselves. Instead, they're going to be adding a new member. This member is going to be South Africa. With South Africa on the red team, this immediately creates a lot of tension over here in Africa. If you watch the previous videos, the East African Federation, or I think I called it the Central African Federation now, they got into a pretty large Cold War and a war itself with South Africa around this region, trying to take all these countries over, and they ultimately ended up winning that, kind of. And South Africa, as we saw in the last video as well, is kind of in favor of Russia. They recognize this little strip of land over here, which is something that's not common across the world if you aren't Russian leaning. And they finally make it official by joining in on Russia's alliance. So with South Africa on their side now, South Africa immediately declares war on Zimbabwe and Mozambique. What did these two countries do? Well, literally nothing. I'm pretty sure they fought on the same side as these guys in the last video. I don't remember, or the video before that. I don't remember. I only watched the last video to catch up. Shame on me, but I do want to start cranking these videos out so I don't have to put as much like stress on myself during the actual upload week. That's right, I'm recording this on the 4th. Joke's on you guys. 4 days in advance. Anyway, the South Africans are going to have an easy time here. I mean, the Mozambique and Zimbabwe, they were war stricken. They just they're not in a good spot to survive. South Africa takes advantage of that and manages to capitulate both of them within a couple of weeks. And as we can see here by the peace treaty, they're going all out for the land. But now the Central African Federation here, they're in a little bit of a bad spot. They are almost completely surrounded on all sides by the red team. Once again, the map here isn't updated all the way. But you can see up here, they only border Nigeria, who are friendly towards them. They also border Angola, but as you can see by their landmass, they invaded Angola. They sort of invade Namibia, but they're barely surviving, so they're almost completely surrounded here. And as it turns out, that's exactly where the red team wants them. Now, of course, the WDO is going to be flying to the aid of the Central African Federation here. They're not going to get involved directly, but they are going to send a crap load of equipment, materials, resources, all that stuff is going to go over to the Central African Republic. They don't want to get involved just yet, just because they are not ready to get involved if they even wanted to. Obviously, they have the major advantage here, but like, it would just be too much to go to war right now. So at first we see the Axis having a lot of success pushing down into different parts of the Central African Federation. They mostly tend to focus on the coast over here in the Indian Ocean. We see South Africa also go up, take over parts of Malawi and into the southern parts of Tanzania. And it looks like that the Central African Federation was not ready for this war. And it continues to look that way for several weeks as they just keep getting beat back, unable to hold off the red team. Finally though, after like a month or two of fighting, the blue team starts to finally kick back. They send troops down south into South Africa in order to push them all the way back to this pretty large lake right here, which I should probably know the name of, but I don't. Following that, they focus on the coast over here and do well pushing back until the red team is able to hold off the blue team. Up north, the same case scenario, they go for the coast, while also pushing them back from this lake over here. At this point, the Central African Federation is exhausted of fighting, although they have to continue on, as the red team shows no signs of wanting to stop. The red team now guns for the Atlantic coast in order to cut off any trading routes that the Central African Federation has with the WDO, and they are surprisingly enough successful in doing so, even though you would think that the Central African Federation will want to protect this port. From here, the CAF pushes back even further inland, although the red team isn't really focused on defending that much of its land. We see the same thing over here down near the South African border. They don't get into the country, but they do meet the border of it. But the main problem with this is that the red team is mainly focusing on their other coast now with the Indian Ocean. They managed to meet back up with this ginormous lake, and that's not the only lake they meet up with, because they meet up with the Indian Ocean, which is a giant lake in my definition. So after a few more weeks of fighting, we have the two teams meeting up finally, with South Africa and Ethiopia meeting. And now at this point, the CAF is just starving. They're not getting their resources anymore. I mean, they probably are. They're just being like shot into the CAF with the, I don't know, this is like 100 years in the future, so I'm assuming they have rockets that just shoot supplies into territory. Or maybe Angola and Namibia are allowing the WDO in, but nonetheless, they're definitely receiving a lot less supplies compared to as where they were at the beginning of the war. The people are starving and demanding peace, and the government finally folds over to the red team, ending the probably the most notable country in this series so far. Let's go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. All right, taking a look at this peace treaty here, we've had a lot change over here in Central Africa. Of course, starting off with the red team, the victors here, they have completely dismantled the Central African Federation and have just left it to the DRC and Gabon, as well as, yeah, of course, the Republic of Congo itself. So yeah, the Congo is just the Congo now, and that's exactly what it's called, Congo. It's not looking good for them. But now we also have the expansion of other countries, such as Sudan, who is becoming very large. They took a good portion of land down here in the south. We have Ethiopia getting land over here from Somalia. And most notably, we have the existence of Kenya and Tanzania once more. Now, what's interesting about this is that all of these guys were forced into the red team, which basically gets them a good portion of Africa. Now, you'll also notice in this peace treaty that Angola got land. Now that's weird because Angola isn't a member of the red team, but that's where you're wrong. That's because Angola was given the option to receive most of their land back, not all of it, and in return they would get access, or they would get membership in the red team, and Angola accepted that after being bullied by Namibia and the Central African Federation in the previous war. So yeah, the red team is expanding in parts of the world which you probably wouldn't expect them to. And the WDO is well, they're scared to say the least. So now the red team is going to chill out for a little bit. I mean, they've already done a lot. The borders of Africa have changed like a lot. But moving on from the red team and now focusing on a different team, that being the blue team. These guys are going to get a new member, and that member is going to be Nigeria. Nigeria is already pretty close with the WDO. I don't think they were ever in it, if I remember correctly, but they've always worked with them. They've been close with each other. And with the mass expansion of red in Africa, they're going to make the safe bet and go ahead and join in the WDO in order to save themselves from probably death. And with that, the only two neutral countries in Africa are now going to be the remains of Namibia and the Republic, or the Federation thingy, which is just the Congo. So the Congo. Now we go back over to Western Europe, where we're going to have another country decide to join in on the European Union. Now, in the previous video, I said that everyone declined, and that is true. However, some countries decided to go ahead and like do a referendum anyway, kind of like what Denmark did. And turns out Iberia wants in because their vote was 56 to 44. That is a majority vote, and they're going to go ahead and join in. Now, it might seem weird because they did just unite into Iberia, but the fact that they're already a union and the thoughts of unionizing are already in the head of the people of Iberia, that's pretty much going to push them to join in on the European Federation. And that's exactly what they do. Now, no one else is going to do this right now because there's no point in doing it. Poland's chilling, Hungary's chilling, Croatia's chilling, Italy's chilling. They really have no point in wanting to join this. That is for now, of course, though. They can do it in future videos. Brazil is a member of the Neutral Alliance. That is true. But they just elected a leader in the past couple of weeks or months, and that leader turned out to be a dictator. And I know that Brazil was already kind of in that dictator phase in previous videos. Now they're going full force, and Brazil is going to invade whatever this is. I honestly don't even know. Bolivia, if that is you, it's over. With Brazil's aggressive expansion into Bolivia, they are effectively kicked out of the neutral organization. And after annexing all of Bolivia, they decide they're going to go ahead and join in on the Red Alliance. Kind of a big deal considering that this is right on the doorstep of the United States of America. And at this point, the Neutral Alliance is kind of losing its reputation for being a good, viable choice to go to if you truly want to be neutral, because you know, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, you can see that they're highlighted on this map. The problem is that they don't actually exist. And now with Bolivia's disappearance, some people are starting to question, like, is the Neutral Alliance even like a good idea in the first place? So looking at this world map now, it just got even. It got really even in terms of landmass. In terms of power, of course, the blue team still holds a ginormous advantage, but the red team is slowly gaining power. They're slowly gaining members, and of course a lot of land and resources. World tensions seem to be soaring at this point, and countries are bracing for another global conflict, which will be the fifth of its kind in world history. And something very bad is about to happen to the blue team. Its strongest country, the United States of America, who has been holding out for years and years and years, just went through a tough election. Similar to the 2020 election, which took place hundreds of years ago, the outcome of it was not accepted by many. Many believe that the election was stolen from one side, and they're opting to overthrow the government now. And on January 7th of whatever year this event is taking place in, they get to the Capitol building, and they manage to get into the chambers of the Congress, and they managed to take the lives of several U.S. government representatives. This in turn turns into a full-scale civil war, which ends up disbanding the North American Union here. And just like that, the United States is out of the North American Union, which automatically releases this land back to Mexico, and Canada gains independence. Canada is quick to join the WDO, and of course Mexico is quick to assimilate their land, but the USA is going to fall into civil war. And oh, what a semi-familiar map, although some states look to have flipped here in this timeline. Nonetheless, civil war is here, and the USA is pretty much just excused from world activities. Red team is gonna love this. But for now, the US focuses on fixing itself, which is gonna leave some countries vulnerable. Hi, Georgia. That's not nice. Come on, Russia. Really? Really, man? Really? All right, Georgia is now Russian again for the 10th time in the series. And in addition to that, Armenia opts to join in on Russia's team. And by team, I mean country. And now Turkey is starting to regret leaving the WDO, as their border is now lined with Russians. And those lined Russians start to enter. Now, the orders here are kind of confusing for the Russians because they don't know what they're supposed to do. What they're told to do is just to go. Like, that doesn't really help. Like, are we supposed to go into the country? Go to the border? They just took it as go into the country. Russian troops zoom into Turkey, and honestly, Russia's kind of strong here. It's kind of weird how strong they are. You know, considering that they're losing all of their more valuable parts, but I mean, it is the combined strength of the old Eastern world working together here. And of course, all these developed African nations now, because, you know, it's been hundreds of years. I'm sure Africa has finally developed. But yeah, the newfound strength is certainly helping them out here. So they take Azerbaijan away and start invading into Iraq. But it doesn't necessarily appear that they're going after Turkey itself. Sure, they do have some of its land, but the red team is focusing in on these other areas of Turkey. And Turkey is unable to really hold themselves back from being invaded. And eventually they are left with like this. And it is at this point that they agree to peace. looking at this peace treaty here, we have well, a banishment of Turkey. Basically what the access does here is that they make it so Turkey is not allowed to join the WTO in any given scenario. So yeah, if Turkey was having thoughts of rejoining, those thoughts are now dead. In addition to that, they released Kurdistan. This is most likely just to kind of like make fun of Turkey, but of course this Kurdistan is part of the access here. That's no shots fired at Kurdistan. They're just kind of under the control of the red team. And of course, Azerbaijan and any parts of Armenia that remained are now a part of Iran and Russia. Back over to the US Civil War, things are getting a lot prettier for the blue team here, which is just the normal US government. They're able to push back the rebellious Canadians who were for some reason a part of the US here. I don't know if it was some kind of treaty they did with Canada when they united, or I have no idea. But it was most likely just a land swap for Alaska. If, like, for God forbid our union breaks up, you get Alaska, we'll take over New Brunswick. So that's probably what happened there. But yeah, like I said, for the blue team, things are getting prettier. They're able to push back into the Kentucky and South Carolina areas. They're able to push back Wisconsin and the Minnesota areas. And they also managed to cut off the Nevada area from the rest of the red team, which automatically makes them capitulate. Overall, the blue team here is receiving a lot of support from the EU and other allies across the world. And this civil war is soon to be over. It finally managed to cut across Arkansas and Missouri. Now at this point, it's just a bunch of like mountain dudes riding around with their chainsaws. And what did they even do over here? Now it's just Florida. Of course it's Florida. Florida is the last country or state that remains. And well, yeah. Florida man will not be able to win this war, and the United States is whole again. So now that that happened, there's a bit of a problem. They don't want to reunite with Canada and Mexico, or the parts of Mexico they took, so they can't really reunite with it. But they can't redo the union with Canada because they both don't want it. That was a scary civil war situation. Canada doesn't want to go through it. The United States isn't ready to go through with a union. So they're just going to be left on their own. Of course, the US is going to rejoin the WTO here. But they're going to be rejoining as not the strongest country anymore, because that's most likely going to go to China, or it's going to go to the European Union. It could also go to Korea or Japan, because I'm not sure how much they've developed in this timeline. I'm assuming a lot more. Scary situation there for the US and the WTO. The red team most certainly took advantage of it and invaded a couple of countries. But that is going to do it for today's alternative future video. So if you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Once again, aiming for 100,000 subscribers. Almost there. We have around 8,750 more to go, as I said earlier. And it would be amazing if we hit that by the end of January. I think we have a chance to do it. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed, make sure to do it. Tomorrow's video will be out tomorrow. I'm not going to say what it is, but you will see what it is when it comes out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.